Okay, so let's get right into this. We're talking about a story that's as tragic as it is complex. For over a decade, this case grew into the largest cold case in the entire history of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. It's a real mystery that left a whole town with one single haunting question. Right? What happened to Tara Grinstead? This is the question that just hung over the small town of Ocilla, Georgia, for years. You have this popular, beloved teacher who basically just vanishes into thin air. And the search for answers, well, it would lead everyone down a very, very long and dark road. So to really understand this, we've got to start at the beginning. We need to talk about who Tara was and the absolutely bizarre circumstances surrounding the night she disappeared. See, Tara Grinstead wasn't just a name on a missing person poster. Not at all. She was this bright light in her community, a really dedicated history teacher at the local high school. And on top of that, she was a former beauty queen. She'd been crowned Miss Tifton back in '99. She was just this energetic, involved person, which made it all the more shocking when she was suddenly gone. Okay, so what investigators found at her house on October 23, 2005, it was just eerie. The night before, she'd been to a local cookout, and then she went home. But she never showed up for work the next day. Her car, still in the driveway. Her cell phone was inside, plugged in, and charging. But her purse and her keys were gone. And here's the weirdest part. There were absolutely no signs of a struggle, no forced entry. It was baffling. The only clue, the only thing out of place, was a single latex glove just lying there in her front yard.
But that one glove and every other lead investigators chased, they went absolutely nowhere. For years, the investigation just stalled. The case file got thicker and thicker with theories, but it held zero real answers. 11 years. Just let that sink in. For over a decade, Tara's family, her friends, her students, that whole community, they just had to live in this horrible state of not knowing. There were no suspects, no arrests, no justice. Honestly, hope was starting to run out. And you know, the sheer scale of the investigation really tells you how deep this mystery ran. It became the GBI's largest cold case ever. That's a testament to the thousands of hours and all the dead-end leads that investigators followed, all without a breakthrough. And then, in 2016, when it felt like this case would be cold forever, something totally unexpected happened. A new kind of media. A podcast took an interest, and believe me, it changed absolutely everything. This timeline right here shows the exact moment the floodgates opened. This podcast, Up and Vanished, didn't just retell an old story. It created a national conversation around it. And all that new attention brought in the one thing investigators needed for 11 years, a credible tip. And that tip led them straight to the arrest of Ryan Duke for Tara's murder. And just a little while later, his old classmate, Bo Dukes, was arrested for helping him cover it all up. After a decade of silence, the case had finally cracked wide open. But you know, the arrests, that wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot. It was just the beginning of a really messy, contradictory legal fight. The story that started to come out was anything but simple. So the whole case pretty much came to hinge on this one shocking moment. Ryan Duke had confessed back in 2017. He said, "I broke into her house for drug money, she startled me, I hit her, and I killed her." Pretty straightforward, right? But then, when he gets on the stand at his own trial, he flips the script completely. He takes back his confession and points the finger straight at Bo Dukes, claiming Bo was the real killer and that he only helped burn the body because he was terrified of him. And the final verdicts? Well, they were just stunning. Bo Dukes? He was found guilty of concealing the death and got 25 years in prison. But Ryan Duke, the man who originally confessed to the murder, was acquitted of that charge. The jury only found him guilty of concealing the death. So think about that for a second. We've got two men convicted of hiding a body, but neither of them was actually convicted of the murder itself. And just when you think this can't get any more tangled, you get a legal curveball. An appeals court recently threw out some other separate charges against both men, basically saying the clock had run out years ago to charge them for those crimes. Now, to be clear, this doesn't change their current prison sentences for hiding Tara's death, but it just adds another layer to the legal maze here. So where does all this leave us? Well,
It all leads to a conclusion that is just deeply, deeply unsatisfying for everyone who was hoping for clear answers and justice for Tara.
And this is probably the most painful part of all. Despite confessions from both men about burning her body in a pecan orchard, and even though investigators found tiny bone fragments right there at that spot, the DNA results came back inconclusive. Tara's family has never been able to properly lay her to rest.
So yeah, 2 men are in prison. The justice system held them accountable for their actions after Tara was already dead. But that right there is the central tragedy of this entire saga. In the eyes of the law, the person who actually took Tara Grinstead's life has never been held responsible. Her murder is officially unsolved.
And that's what we're left with, this haunting question. I mean, we got a legal outcome, sure. There were convictions for covering up a horrific crime. But is that justice? For Tara's family, for her friends, for that whole community still waiting for an answer? It feels like the real justice they're looking for is still missing.